Hello, my name is Tosca Bruno van Vijwijken and I direct the Transnational NGO Initiative at Syracuse University here at the Maxwell School. And we are currently hosting two visitors from World Vision. And today I'm undertaking a brief interview with Richard Marshall, the Senior Director for People and Culture at World Vision. So thank you, Richard, for allowing us to interview you today. This will be a helpful tool for students and faculty.
Sure.
Now, many people know World Vision. Of course, it has a tremendous brand name. But for those who don't, what is the nature and mission of your organization?
Yeah, so World Vision, essentially we're involved in humanitarian work, relief and development work around the world. Our particular mission is to focus on the well-being of children in many countries. So we're raising money from countries in the north and essentially programming that money and spending money working with children and communities in the south.
I see. Very interesting. Now you're here as a Moynihan TNGO Fellow, as we call it, which is a program within our practitioner engagement component that allows once a year, one or two leaders to spend some time researching an organizational challenge with us and therefore getting some time for intellectual rest or recreation, if you will. So tell us, what is the particular organizational challenge you are researching while you're here with us?
Yeah, so what I'm looking into is essentially what are the characteristics of the CEO of the future, the chief executives, particularly for our fundraising offices, which is an area that I'm focusing on. So I mentioned all the different country offices that World Vision has. 20 of those are fundraising offices primarily. And we've just noticed we've got a certain amount of change at the moment. We are replacing, renewing, recruiting for new CEOs. And so I'm asking the question really, is the CEO of the future going to be different from the CEO of the past? And what do we need to pay attention to make sure we get the best people into those key roles? So,
of course, now I want to ask, you're 1.5 week into your 2 weeks fellowship with us, so you're probably starting to formulate some thoughts without being exhaustive or conclusive about it. What are some of the thoughts that you have formulated about how the profile of the future CEO for a large development NGO that is also faith-based like World Vision, how that profile is different from what you currently recruit for?
I think the biggest, it's difficult because there's so many different things that a CEO needs. And you've got the sort of core requirements of being visionary, being able to execute strategy, focusing on results. But I think one of the things that's coming to the fore in what I'm reading is not so much about what the CEO does as to who they are. So because they have so many stakeholders to manage, their ability to build relationships, to build trust is so critical. And so that personal quality of who they are, their authenticity, their integrity, their emotional intelligence is something that keeps cropping up, and the ability to network and collaborate across boundaries inside and across the organization is very critical.
And so would you say that until recently that quality was underemphasized in recruitment processes?
Yes, I think it probably was. I think the focus was very much on their track record of results and what was achieved. And to a certain extent, the commitment to the mission, which continues to be important. But I think this ability to inspire, motivate, work with people and build relationships of trust with people across cultures, across different national boundaries, different sectors, that's going to be really critical for the future.
Interesting. So how did you first become interested in, we'll just summarize it as transnational activism and NGO work? I know you have a background as, I believe, an organizational psychologist, is that right?
That's right, yeah. I think it probably started even before I did my studies. I spent some time before going to university, both in Israel and in Africa, just kind of on expeditions, going overland and then spending time around Israel as well. And I think just understanding and seeing some of the issues that were being faced. My time in Africa was around the time of the Ethiopian famine. So it was a time, I think, having grown up in the UK, I guess we were protected somewhat from some of the challenges around the world. And I think seeing some of that firsthand made me think, that's something that would be worth getting involved in. And so I determined then to go back, get some qualifications, get some skills and experience that could be useful, and then I wanted to apply those to some of the challenges in not-profit work, in humanitarian work.
Okay, and our other interview with you around career issues will undoubtedly ask you to explore that a bit more. Yeah. So within your area of senior leadership, organizational development and organizational culture, what do you feel are currently the top two or three core challenges that World Vision is facing, and how is your organization trying to deal with those?
Again, tough to boil it down to just two or three, but I think that because as the research I'm doing now is looking at leadership, I guess the leaders of the future and looking at how we invest in our own leadership, I think is one of the key things that we need to do, and perhaps haven't paid as much attention to that as we needed to have done. So we're spending more time trying to identify future leaders and looking at how we can invest in them. We have various different programs at different levels in the organization, a senior leadership development program. We have a leadership program for our people and culture professionals, the ones that we've identified for as potential for key roles in the future. So those are some of the things that we're doing. We're specifically identifying people perhaps earlier in their career and then looking at how we can invest in them and develop them for the future.
I see. So how does, within your area of work within World Vision, when you think about organizational development, building healthy and effective cultures for the organization and leadership, how do you define effectiveness? How do you, not just you as an individual professional, but those with you who are working on this collectively, how do you define effectiveness? And when do you know that you're more or less effective?
Yeah, well, and I know this is something that you guys have been looking at here as well in terms of effectiveness of NGOs. So we have a strategy. So the first place you go to is, are we achieving the goals that we've set out? And I guess our goals are both in terms of growing the impact of the work that we have in our field programs. It's also about growing the influence that we can have, which is something that cuts across the north and the south. And I guess in order to be able to do that, we need to grow our income as well. So there's three I's, if you like, will be three things that we track. I think also for an NGO, I think it was Jim Collins who said, what's the main difference with NGOs being not-for-profit? Clearly, profit's not the focus, but he says the focus is about being true to your values more than anything. So I think that's another area where we're looking to be accountable and build in accountability. For example, something I've been involved in the last couple of years is building our values into our performance management process, so that we can actually track the behaviour of staff as well as the goals that they achieve. And so that includes some level of accountability and effectiveness as well in what we do.
Interesting. I think that last area what you mentioned is something that it sounds to me like World Vision is ahead of some other organizations. This linking directly of values with performance and behaviours. Finally, what leadership skills, both formal and informal, do you think are crucial to be an effective leader in World Vision, given its identity, its nature, and its culture?
Quite often you hear people talk in World Vision about the importance of relational leadership and being a relational organisation. So I guess that ability to work across those different stakeholder groups, and I mean, I've already talked about building relationships with different kinds of people. But I think part of the reason for that is in terms of getting things done, you don't have this strong hierarchical culture, which you might get in some for-profits where the hierarchy, it's not necessarily command and control, but just you have a structure that says if the leader says we're doing it this way, we do. Whereas I think in not-for-profits, there's a lot more willingness to challenge and discuss and debate. And particularly working in the human resources area, I've found there's not many times where you have direct authority over a decision or a process, but you're working with influence and you're looking to shape and guide. But that's a two-way process of listening to the other and inquiring and understanding, but also advocating for a point of view as well.
Interesting. Well, thank you so much for this interview.
You're welcome. Thank you.